In Hollywood, betrayal rarely arrives with drama. It doesn't happen on camera. It unfolds in boardrooms, memos, and carefully worded invitations that seem innocent until they aren't. And this one? It began with a favor. Reese Witherspoon had spent the last 5 years building something real. Her production company, Hello Sunshine, had quietly transformed from a feel-good brand into a formidable presence in film and television. Female-led, emotionally rich, and most importantly, hers S.O. when she started developing a limited series for Hulu in early 2023. It felt like a natural evolution. The working title was The Quiet Years, a two-woman drama about estranged sisters reuniting after a family tragedy. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. But it was good. Then came the casting delay. The role of the younger sister, a vital counterpart to the dynamic, was difficult to cast. Reese had a shortlist. The studio had a name. Blake Lively, fresh off high-profile fashion campaigns. She was press-friendly, scandal-free, and familiar. Reese had worked with her before. She was a safe bet. She smiled in all the right photos. And she seemed harmless. S.O. Reese said yes. And that was the beginning of the end. From the moment Blake entered the room, the vision began to shift. First, it was subtle. Blake's team had notes. Nothing major, just small tweaks. Her character felt thin, the emotional beats uneven. Then came a wardrobe suggestion. Something less rural, more coastal chic. Reese didn't push back. She let the director handle it. By the second week, the costume designer was gone. Then came the script meeting. Blake showed up with a producer in tow, someone she wasn't officially contracted to bring. Yet somehow, she was suddenly involved in narrative evolution. The director, blindsided, started calling Reese privately. One email read, "Trying to keep this anchored in your original vision, but they're pitching a tonal shift. It's younger, glossier, feels like a different show." Reese didn't respond. She didn't argue. She started forwarding emails to her legal team, because Reese Witherspoon has seen this play before. She's watched actresses rebrand themselves into executives. She's witnessed entire productions collapse under the weight of one image-driven rewrite. She wasn't going to stop it. She was going to let it happen and make sure everyone saw who was holding the pen. An public statement. No scheduling conflict. No vague, excited for new adventures tweet. Just silence. Quietly, Reese Witherspoon disappeared from her own show. Behind the scenes, the unraveling was swift. Her name vanished from call sheets. Hello Sunshine pulled its funding from 3 departments: catering, costume, and marketing. No press release. No warning. Just a surgical retreat. And in Hollywood, sometimes silence is the loudest statement. The producers scrambled. They offered compromises, maybe a stylistic blend, maybe a joint press narrative. They even suggested Reese could return in a reduced role, strictly as a producer. She didn't reply, because this wasn't a retreat. It was a decision. In a closed-door meeting with Hello Sunshine's legal team, Reese said just 6 words. Let her carry it alone. Whispers traveled fast. Industry watchers noticed first. Reese Witherspoon was no longer listed as executive producer or lead actress on The Quiet Years. Wait, wasn't this her series? Writers who had signed on for Reese's vision began stepping away. Quietly, professionally. A female director handpicked by Reese resigned, citing a creative divergence. And Blake? She said nothing. She kept filming, kept smiling, kept reposting stills with captions like, "This one's special." But to those who had read the original script, this version felt off. This wasn't drama. This was calculated silence. And to insiders, that silence was thunderous. The first trailer dropped in early June 2023. It had all the hallmarks of Blake's team's fingerprints: soft golden hour light, poetic voiceover, slow-motion shots of her in wheat fields, wrapped in a $4,000 linen trench coat. The tagline read, "A story about legacy, about sisterhood, about silence." But here's the problem. It wasn't her silence to tell. Reese's version was raw, rural, intimate. It was about trauma, reconciliation, and the quiet endurance of female memory. What Blake delivered felt like a luxury fashion ad with whispered dialogue, Fans caught on. The trailer for The Quiet Years feels like a Vogue short. One user posted, "Wasn't this supposed to be a Southern family drama?" June 6, 2023. Still, no comment from Reese. No tweet. No subtweet. Not even a muted Instagram story. But the blow that came next wasn't from the studio. It was Vogue. That same week, they published a glossy interview titled Blake Lively, reclaiming the Southern story. The spread showed Blake barefoot in lace, posing in front of a reconstructed plantation set. No mention of Reese. No mention of Hello, Sunshine. Just a vague line. Concept originally developed by unnamed collaborators. Critics didn't lash out. They withdrew. Writers who once praised Reese's work began reposting old reviews with new captions. "We miss when stories were grounded, not glossed." Online, the sentiment exploded. "I'm sorry, but this is giving Blake Lively trying to become Reese energy," one tweet read, and the show hadn't even aired yet. Meanwhile, Reese was spotted at an Apple TV Plus event in Los Angeles. She smiled. She networked. She said nothing. But off-camera, a journalist asked her what she thought about Blake's upcoming project. She answered softly, clearly, "I've already told the story I wanted to tell." That quote never made the article. But someone in the room tweeted it, and within minutes, it was everywhere. Reese Witherspoon on The Quiet Years rollout. "I've already told the story I wanted to tell." It was cool. Measured. Lethal. The premiere date was set. August 1st, 2023. Netflix banners launched. The teaser dropped, Blake in every frame. Minimalist tone, sunlit filters, golden hour everything. But something didn't land. The campaign looked expensive, but felt hollow. The trailer was beautiful but flat. Even Blake's interviews came off script. She repeated lines like, "It's about grief, but also glamour. It's soft power in visual form." Critics blinked. This wasn't soft-powered, it was soft-focused. As the rollout picked up, the backlash hit harder. The Quiet Years was supposed to be a layered, emotional drama. What audiences got instead was Blake Lively dressed as a Pinterest board. Then came Variety's headline. It cut deep, a visually exquisite, narratively hollow drama that feels more like a branded lifestyle ad than a story about grief and memory. But the worst wasn't the reviews, it was the numbers. Completion rates were abysmal. Netflix buried the data quietly, hoping no one would notice. But someone did. A casting call appeared on a private industry board, posted by a rep from Hello, Sunshine. The title? Hollow Creek, a limited series about two estranged sisters. One returns home after a scandal. It sounded familiar, too familiar. Reese was quietly producing a new version of the show Blake had just crashed, and suddenly, it all made sense. This wasn't just a flop. It was a setup. Strategic silence was a retreat. It was a trap. Let her overproduce it. Let her oversell it. Let her believe the spotlight was hers. And when it collapsed under its own weight, Reese Witherspoon walked away without a single scratch. By mid-June 2023, Blake Lively's rollout for The Quiet Years was in full swing. But something strange started happening behind the scenes. People stopped showing up one by one. Former collaborators who had once been in talks for the project, guest directors, producers, stylists, began quietly pulling out. No announcements. No press releases. Just silent exits. And it wasn't just the crew. And Hathaway, who had been loosely attached as an executive consultant during the early pitch stage, was suddenly gone. Florence Pugh, who had publicly praised Reese's concept just months earlier on Instagram, began declining interviews that mentioned the show. Then a fan asked Florence directly in a comment why she wasn't involved anymore. Her reply? Just 3 words. Protect your name. No drama. No shade. Just a quiet warning. It didn't go unnoticed. Observers began to connect the dots. Florence and walked once redid. They saw what it was and what it had become. Meanwhile, Vogue quietly revised its earlier feature on the show. Originally titled a Hello Sunshine masterpiece, it was now just streaming's next Southern drama. Reese's name was gone. Even the tags had been stripped. That's when the real shift started. Brands that had previously amplified the morning show and Big Little Lies, the kind of shows Reese made iconic, were radio silent. No reaction threads. No reposts. No corporate tags. One studio insider summed it up perfectly in a leaked Slack message. The room isn't anti-Blake. It's just pro-Ree. And they know who actually built this. What no one realized back in April, when Reese Witherspoon quietly stepped away from the quiet years, was that she wasn't finished with the story. She was just taking it somewhere better. Because while Blake was lacing herself in tulle and tailoring a rebranded Southern drama for cameras, Reese was already deep in quiet meetings with Apple TV+. She'd registered a new project. A different title. A different setting. But the same emotional core. Working title. Inheritance. Still about estranged sisters. Still rural. But darker. Sharper. And this time, starring someone who wouldn't rewrite the script, insiders confirmed that Reese had reassembled a new creative team, including the original director, who had dropped out when Blake's influence began to take over. And the lead, not a red carpet regular. Not a fashion brand ambassador. A rising indie actress. Raw, grounded, and unknown to the Vogue crowd. Someone who didn't need a lace dress or a plantation set to prove she could act. Hearing Reese Witherspoon just locked her next Apple TV+ lead, one insider tweeted. And it's not a name you'd expect. Let's just say, no one's rewriting the script. As the word spread, the narrative flipped. Reese hadn't walked away out of defeat. She'd let Blake take the stage, reshape the show, call it hers, and then watched it implode. Then, with the dust still settling, she released the real version. On a better platform. With better collaborators. And no one in her way. Suddenly, The Quiet Years wasn't just a flop, it was a warning. They started pulling quotes from old Reese interviews. Quiet lines, once overlooked, suddenly hit different. Because now everyone could see it, The Quiet Years was all silk and no spine. And Inheritance? That was bone deep. Grounded. Reeled. Reese's version premiered that fall. No splashy rollout. No fashion spreads. Just a story that hit. Quietly, it earned 2 Golden Globe nominations. The Quiet Years? Not a single nod. The message was loud. Blake didn't post about the nominations. What could she say? She hadn't just lost a show. She'd become an example of what happens when you try to repurpose a story that wasn't yours to tell. In Hollywood, loyalty doesn't always look like a tweet. It looks like a casting memo with your name left off. A brand pivoting to a different ambassador. It looks like silence when you were expecting applause, and by early 2024, Blake Lively was hearing nothing but silence. Even though she had fronted the glossy, high-budget rollout for The Quiet Years, the momentum had disappeared. The campaign trail went cold. The show had underperformed, and worse, no one was rallying to her defense. Whispers got louder inside the industry. Casting directors stopped mentioning her name on shortlists. Luxury brands began pausing upcoming deals. And the people who once smiled next to her in front of cameras quietly vanished. Florence Pugh, once rumored to co-lead a Hello Sunshine project, was now in early talks to headline Reese's Inheritance series. Nicole Kidman, an actress who'd worked with both Blake and Reese, was suddenly showing up to only Reese's panels. Never Blake's. And then there was Zendaya, fresh off her own breakout executive producer moment. Zendaya reposted a Variety cover story celebrating Reese's creative power. But when it came to The Quiet Years, not a single like. Not a single story share. It was the absence that said everything. Even brand managers started speaking off the record. She's overexposed, one said. She feels curated, not connected. She tried to wear Reese's skin and people felt it. Then came the numbers. A leaked casting memo from a major studio listed her status bluntly. Blake Lively, visibility, high. Relatability, low. Trust rating, uncertain. It wasn't the blacklist. There didn't need to be one. The doors weren't slammed, they just stopped opening. And as Blake continued posting content, carefully curated behind-the-scenes stills, vintage filtered B-roll, shots from coffee table script reads, something was missing. Everyone else, the tags, the reposts, the mutual promotions, gone. And then came the press call that cemented the shift. An international casting director was asked if Blake was being considered for a new political thriller. Her answer was clean, calm, and lethal. We're looking for someone grounded. Someone real. She smiled. Someone like Reese Witherspoon. By February 2024, Blake Lively was ready to reclaim her spotlight. Her team wasn't giving up. Not YETSO, they did what they do best, a full-blown rollout, a limited series premiere hosted in New York. Sponsored by a wellness brand. Styled to perfection. Custom Chanel gown. A private press list. A step-and-repeat plastered in her face. IT was staged to be her comeback moment. But something was off. And oh, Reese. No Florence. No Anne. No big-name actresses reposting or promoting the event. And when the first Getty images from the carpet hit Twitter, fans noticed something far worse. The carpet was half empty. Whereas everyone, one post asked, Blake Lively's premiere looks like a Tuesday press pop-up. Another tweet went viral. Is this the quietest carpet of 2024? Coverage was lukewarm. Variety called the event intimate. The Hollywood Reporter labeled it strategic minimalism. But Reddit didn't hold back. She's literally throwing parties, and nobody's coming. It's giving I Still Matter energy. Then came the headline that shut it all down. Even Blake's own PR team didn't know how to spin it. According to a leaked internal memo, allegedly sent the morning after her big comeback premiere, the recap was bleak. Engagement low, coverage tepid, talent support minimal, brand alignment under review, and in the middle of it all, Blake, still smiling, still posing, still pretending not to notice that the silence had become deafening, but behind the scenes, something had been quietly building. While Blake was front and center, posting, promoting, performing, Reese Witherspoon had never stopped working. She just shifted the spotlight. What the public didn't know is that Reese had never abandoned the quiet years. She had just taken the real version somewhere else. According to 3 separate insiders, the original concept, the one Blake's team had repackaged, restyled, and rebranded, had quietly been restructured under a new title and discreetly pitched to Apple TV+. By Reese. Personally, the new show, Inheritance, same core themes. Same Southern Gothic trauma. Same small-town grief. But with a stripped-back cast, a moodier tone, and one key change, Reese wasn't in it. She wasn't the face. She was just the force behind it. She produced it quietly through a smaller Hello Sunshine subsidiary. And the lead role? It went to Amelia Jones, the raw, unfiltered breakout from Coda. No fashion contracts. No red carpet legacy. Just grit, precision, and power. The premiere date? Exactly 1 week after The Quiet Years aired its finale, the internet lost it. Wait, is Reese's new show just the original version of The Quiet Years? Did she really say, you take the press, I'll take the story? Side-by-side comparisons exploded online. The structure, the setting, the sister dynamic. But where Blake's version had felt like a Pinterest board, Inheritance had soul. Industry veterans began weighing in. The verdict was unanimous. Rotten Tomatoes, 91% fresh. Metacritic, 84. While The Quiet Years didn't even make the Emmy ballots, Inheritance was already being floated as Apple's next major limited series contender. And Reese? She didn't issue a statement. She didn't tweet. She didn't do a press blitz. She just retweeted the trailer with a single line. Some stories just need the right person to tell them. It wasn't a panel. It wasn't a viral tweet. It wasn't a Vanity Fair cover. IT was a podcast. In late March 2024, Reese appeared on a low-key, highbrow podcast called Women in the Frame. It didn't chart. It didn't trend. But what she said halfway through the interview changed everything. The host asked her a deceptively soft question. What do you do when a project you cared about slips out of your hands? Reese paused, took a long breath, then answered, I think sometimes we confuse saving something with holding on too long. And there's power in knowing when to let go, especially when the person you handed it to thought it was theirs to begin with. No names, no drama, just the cleanest mic drop in podcast history. Within hours, the clip spread. She ended a whole feud without saying a single name. That wasn't shade. That was strategy. And on Blake's side, nothing to no press release. No TikToks. Just a cryptic Instagram story. Closure is personal. But it didn't land, because once Inheritance took over the press cycle, Blake disappeared from it. No red carpets. No for your consideration invites. No push for a streaming renewal. You don't always hear a door close in Hollywood. There's no announcement. No final post. But when Reese walked away from The Quiet Years, then made Inheritance into everything that show was supposed to be, the entire industry understood. This wasn't a creative difference. IT was a quiet, calculated correction. BY mid-2024, The Quiet Years was quietly removed from Hulu's top carousel. There was no mention in awards pushes. No promotional revival. Its Instagram page hadn't been updated since July. Just left to rot. And Reese? She never said a word. She didn't need to point. One former Hello Sunshine executive put it best. Reese doesn't block people. She buries them. Gently. With poise. With a smile. She had built a story from scratch. Watched someone else reshape it. Then turned around and built it again, cleaner, sharper, better. Without them, the press noticed. Inheritance was raw. Visceral. Intimate. IT earned 5 Critics' Choice nominations. Blake's show? A forgotten footnote. In the end, it was never about who got the most buzz. IT was about who had the blueprint. Because when someone tries to rewrite your story, you don't fight them for the pen. You hand them the paper and let them write their own failure.